with U.S. kidnapping of President Maduro of Venezuela. Well, I mean, I think we all agree the current path that Trump has set U.S. on is not ultimately sustainable. But Trump is still going to be in the office for another 3 years. How do you see this all going to end? I mean, this is asking you. I'm asking you to look into your crystal ball for a little bit. But
Well,
like, how he's doing a heck of a job right now to distract people from Epstein file, even though there's still people on social media asking him to show us the files. So he can pivot from one crisis to the next, but do you think he's ever going to run out of this kind of crisis that he can artificially create to keep his to keep himself above the questioning and go ahead.
yeah, that's what I was referring to earlier. I mean, you have to do more and more outrageous things, and when you do those, there's a risk. As I said, that you cross lines. For instance, seizing a Russian oil tanker. Well, Russia's going to respond. My guess is that they'll say, you took one of ours, we're going to take one of yours. And if you want yours back, you give us ours back. Putin is not a pushover. And he's certainly not going to be bowed or kowtow to Donald Trump, who he sees as a fool. A kind of floppish clown that he's been able to push around because he's the stronger man. He's the man that Donald Trump aspires to, ironically. So, yeah, there's going to be retaliation. And then the question is, does it escalate? Or does Trump do what he's famous for, a taco? Right now, he's riding high on his success in Venezuela. The question is, do his advisors say, no, you can push these guys further. Don't worry about it. We got you covered. They're afraid of us. Well, I don't think Putin is afraid of the United States. He's wary of them, but he's not afraid of them. He's not afraid to act. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone into Ukraine. Quite frankly, we baited him into it in 2014 by sponsoring a putsch that took out a guy, somebody who was favorable to him, and put in somebody who was favorable to us. That's against the rules. If Russia did that, remember the Cuban Missile Crisis? We said, okay, we don't like these guys, and they're with Russia, so we're going to threaten nuclear war. Yes, putting missiles there, real problematic, but we had put missiles in Turkey. And the Russians regarded the missiles in Turkey the way we regarded the missiles in Cuba. So there was, people don't talk about it, but the resolution of that is that we took out the missiles in Turkey and they agreed not to try to put missiles in Cuba. So, this would be international diplomacy. But the question is Donald Trump capable of that? He seems to be, jumping around, and because he has this pressure to distract the American public, you don't know exactly what he's going to do. But let's look into the crystal ball. We have different options here. One, Trump makes it to his 3 years. And actually, that's the best scenario. Because if Donald Trump goes for any reason, he's incapacitated, he's removed under Article 25, whatever, you have Darth Vance. And I call him Darth Vance because he believes in the dark enlightenment. I mean, the power of the dark force, literally. I mean, this is the religion that he and his sponsor, the guy who runs, was it not Paradigm? What's the name of that company?
Palantir,
Palantir, yes. Peter Thiel, who's running around the United States telling people the devil is here. Well, when I look at Peter Thiel, I think what the devil would look like, I think that's it. So maybe he's just advertising his own presence or something like that. But he and a bunch of these tech gurus, and incredibly rich, they have over trillions of dollars and combined net worth. And they have control over very sensitive areas, especially in terms of information and technology. Our friend Elon Musk is a fellow traveler with them. He believes that the world should be run by technocrats, that they do not believe in democracy. They rail against it, right? They actually, in their beliefs, they say democracy doesn't work. It's time to end it and to have, a lord of the techno lords to guide the world and put chips in our brains and make us better. It's a dystopian fantasy reality, and it's not that different, unfortunately, from the late 1800s when America went through this huge boom. And the oil barons, the steel barons, the railway barons, and they thought exactly the same thing. They thought, oh, we're so successful, we're so incredible, we should be running the world. But invariably, what happens with these characters is that they all agree that they should running the world, except they don't agree on which one of them should be first among equals. And they ended up, trying to battle each other, literally trying to bankrupt each other, petty squabbling that kept them at bay until, there was a real change with the New Deal and things like this. So it's not repeating, but it certainly is rhyming with history. These people have an inflated sense of their own abilities. They don't realize that it was just luck, that there are more capable people than them, but the times weren't right. These people believe that they're divine or divinely inspired, or they're gods on earth or whatever. So he's a real danger. So you actually want Trump to stay in for 3 years. The problem with Trump is that every day of Trump is 7 days for the rest of us. We literally live in dog years, and it's it's really troubling to think that the next 3 years will be like 21 years in terms of everyday mass distraction, tacos, you name it, everything is coming at you. It's if you want to live forever, it's just every moment with Trump is an eternity. So just be thankful you're living during this period. Yeah, I just thanks. Now, what other things? Well, obviously there could be escalation, some sort of war. I don't think that. I'm hoping that it doesn't go nuclear, but you just don't know what people are telling him. The military-industrial complex always believes that they have the solution, and as in Dr. Strangelove, as I said, as long as there's one American and no Russians, we won. This type of attitude is still there. I mean, it's scary. It's supposed to be, a satire, but these people actually believe it. So you could have escalation there, but you also, what I think is going to happen is within the United States, there's going to be a revulsion towards Donald Trump because his base is fractured. He's not giving them what they want. He's doing the exact opposite of what he advertised he would do. Now, there's still amongst his base the cult-like group who will excuse anything he does. If they showed him in a sexual video with a 14-year-old, they'd say it was fake, that it was created by the Democrats and it's a witch hunt and all this kind of stuff. But there are enough people in there, and we're already seeing that. The other day, you had the rioters, the 1,600 people who were pardoned for their criminal activity on January 6th. Well, some of them showed up in Washington and are demanding hundreds of millions of dollars in compensation for their hooliganism because they were pardoned. Therefore, they were right. If they're right, they need to be compensated for all the bad things that happened to them. Now, about 2% of these wonderful people have already been involved in crimes since then, everything from pedophilia to, fraud, attempted murder, just wonderful things, the kind of things you would expect from a bunch of hooligans who are attracted to an opportunity to express their rage and frustration in that society because it didn't give them what they wanted. So this is a real danger in the U.S. You're going to get further polarization. The problem is the Democrats have nothing to offer at this point. They're actually infighting themselves. They don't like, the mayor of New York because he doesn't tick off the boxes that they want. I mean, you start looking at American politics, what does it become? It's party above individual. And surprise, surprise, you don't get leaders when you have a situation where you say, whether you agree or not, if you don't tick this box, we're not going to support you. If you don't say, oh, I support Israel, okay, you can't be part of our group. Right? If you don't say, you're for this or against that, you can't be part of our group. We'll take away all of our sophisticated machinery. And Iran elections have become much more money-driven and technologically driven. And you need people to do door knocks, and you need the analysis to determine how you can manipulate people into voting for you. What are the major issues? How do you craft answers? All of these things, very, very sophisticated. So if you don't have access to that or the money to buy it, you're at a disadvantage. And that's why we don't have third parties and things like that. So the Democrats are offering very, very little at this point. Maybe somebody comes forward. It would be wonderful if they did, but I'm not counting on it. Because of the structure of the party is not aimed at creating leaders. It's aimed at creating people who go along with the special interests that the party is supporting. And, you've seen that clearly. I mean, the Democrats used to be the blue collar party. And now you have more blue collar workers going directly for Trump because they feel alienated and left aside by what they see as a bunch of woke liberals who don't really care about their issues. So, but it does come to the head for the rest of the world. Independents do not like what Trump is doing. They don't see it as valuable. It doesn't answer their issues, which are our bread and butter issues. And of course, Democrats are going to knee jerk anything anti-Trump is good. So there's going to be a change. The question is how he handles it and whether that results in violence or there's some recourse to the Supreme Court, which puts aside its desire to keep Trump in power and says, look, there's limits even to what we will allow you to do. If that happens, then the question is, does Donald Trump comply? He didn't comply with the orderly process. The last time he lost, he tried to overturn it. He organized a riot to try to pressure Mike Pence into not certifying something when he says, look, I'm just a figurehead. I don't make the decision. I can't even have a reason. I just get the paper and I read it and that's it. I'm not a judge, jury, and executioner here. And Pence recently gave he alluded to his message before, just recently on the anniversary of that, talking about how important it was for him to fulfill his constitutional duty. So you have a lot of turmoil, a lot of chaos. The river is not flowing in one direction. No one knows where it's going. It seems to be a flood in other areas, and it's other areas have no water on them, and no one knows exactly where the currents are going. And this indecision is affecting business. Businesses work on the notion that predictability. I'm going to invest money, and then there's a good reason to believe that money will return to me, and plus profits. But if I don't know what the situation is, there's no way in earth, all right, that I'm going to start investing money unless, I say, well, I can do something in this 3 years while Donald Trump is president and make all my money back and make a profit, right? Yeah, no, then I'll do it. But if it's going to go beyond that, we know that when change comes, it's probably going to be fairly dramatic. Will it be good change? I don't know. That's a tall order. We thought that Biden would change things. In actuality, he just carried on many of Trump's positions, and it was just kind of Trump light. I'm a nicer Trump. I still believe in all that stuff, but I have a rationale for it. But I'm not going to change anything. I'll just be nice to you as I'm taking your stuff. Okay, I'll cite principle. Because I don't like you and I don't understand you and you're not American, so you can't be you can't be like me, and if you're not like me, you can't be good. So there's a whole set of rationales that go into it. But one of the at the heart of this, I hate to point to all the problems without pointing towards solutions. All right, one solution that is absolutely necessary is that America and elites need to reflect. Is what we're doing working for us? And if it's not, let's look at the assumptions that we've made and see which ones are still valid. We live in a dynamic world. If you're not looking at your assumptions, trying to learn, you're really not living a very full life. You're kind of on automatic. This is absolutely necessary if the U.S. is going to come to this mindset that, okay, we're not going to be a hegemon, but we can still be a very great power. And the question is, how do we make ourselves greater? By cooperating with countries instead of trying to beat them into submission or take them over. The costs of trying to take over a country are very, very steep. The second point is that the U.S. has to look at how the rest of the world is growing and decide whether or not it wants to be part of it. And I think the solution is for other countries, especially the global South, Russia, Central Asia, China, to come together and say, even with Europe, and say, we're not going to form an organization. We have an organization. It's called the UN. But it's time that we all get together, CELAC, the South American groups, the African groups, things like that, go to Donald Trump and says, listen, you can do whatever you want to your own people in terms of how much you want to tariff them. If you want to tax them, that's between you and your voters. All right, we're not going to comment on that. That's up to you. But you cannot try to pit us against each other in some cynical colonial divide and conquer game, because that's what is happening here. And it's time the world just says flatly, we don't agree on anything except that you're being a bully. And if this happens, Donald Trump has no choice but to taco. And the reason I say that is the U.S. can battle or, to a standstill, like with Russia and China, or it can actually dominate smaller countries, but it cannot fight everybody. We still have a huge surplus that is due to the fact that we sell services. If these countries got together and said, look, your services are no longer needed, we're going to put 500% tariffs on them. And, basically we're going to end all your consulting and your big four accounting firms and things like that, and we're going to push them out. We have, alternatives to that that we can use, and we can certainly grow our own expertise, and we can use European ones, but you're finished there. That would take a huge chunk out of China. Then everything that's going to America, we're going to put tariffs on. So we're going to collect the tariffs on this side. We're not going to let them do on your side. So before they can come to you, all right, if you order them, we're going to take money out of it, and you're going to have to pay more. Given the fragile state of America, Donald Trump would have no choice but to say, oh, don't take this so seriously. We can work this out. Come on, all this stuff. He would still try his little games and everything like that. But he would be pushed into a situation where he'd have to look in different areas for distractions to keep the American public, from revolting against him. And that's kind of where I see things. I think that there is hope, but it's collective action is the only hope. You can't respond militarily, so you have to respond economically. And economically is really where America lives. It's why they object to China, because China's economics were improving so much. They're afraid that, the economics leads, in their mind, because it's funny. A thief always believes that everyone else is a thief or an idiot, all right? So, I'm just doing to them what they would do to me, right? I'm just preempting them. So there's nothing wrong here. Right? And idiots, who cares? I'm not an idiot. They're idiots. They deserve to, they deserve to be victims. They're there. They're the sheep for people like me, the wolf. So there's always a justification. So, and that's kind of where America is, and it has to move away from that. So let's hope that happens. Collective action economically is the only rational choice for countries to put an end to this kind of marauding adventurism that Donald Trump is promoting.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for that. I mean, I'm glad I had you on my show to talk us through these issues.
Don't say that yet. Wait till the reaction comes in and people start throwing darts, and the CIA shows up at your house and says, "We need to talk to you. Don't talk to that guy."
Well, that will be another show. that will be the next show. But thank you.
That's when you're doing the Maduro thing in orange jumpsuit with the handcuffs on, saying you're an enemy of the people. You're a fellow traveler. Well,
that would be good for TV. That would be good TV. I would do it. I would do it.
I really don't want to see you in that situation, Carl. I mean, it might be great television, but I can assure you, prison is no joke. I was a prosecutor. I had to visit these jails. Oh my God! As a defense attorney, they are not good places. The smell you can cut with a knife. The people are, surprisingly, because they're criminals, they're not nice either.
Well, thank you, Einar, for making your time to speak to us.
Anytime, it's really a pleasure.
If people want to follow your work, where would they go?
Under Asia Narratives Substack, I put out some things. Otherwise, I do 14 shows a week on average. So if you just type my name in, you'll get different things. I don't know, I think 12 different stations in the Middle East. A lot of it will be unintelligible because they don't broadcast my voice, just the translation. Indian TV on probably about 8 or 9 different ones, and then Bloomberg, BBC, Chinese TV, obviously, but that's only about 40% of what I do. 60% is global. Everything from South Africa, Power FM, which apparently is a widely known and broadcast not only South Africa but throughout Africa. So I can't complain. I mean, somebody said, Einar, I did a search on you, an AI search, and I didn't believe it. So I consulted 3 other ones. They said, you're the most prolific guy out there. How do you do it? I said, well, I enjoy it. To me, in many ways, I can give answers or what I think are answers, but they're my opinion. Okay. Hopefully they stir people to thinking. But for me, it's the questions that matter. When you ask me questions, it tells me about how you're thinking. And this is a way of gathering information. So I'm always very cognizant. I will do the same issue on maybe 7 or 8 different medias spanning the world. So hearing what they have to say, what they're interested in, which is apparent through their questions, is to me the best way of gathering understanding. I am not in those countries, but if I hear what they are interested in, I start to have a better understanding of where they are. I'm on 3 think tanks. I write books, all this kind of nonsense. I wouldn't say that I'm a paramount of intellectualism, but I do enjoy discussions. I enjoy talking to you and hearing what you're thinking about and things like this. And hopefully it makes a bit of a difference. You have a following that is interested in these affairs. And, I always like to read the comments afterwards and try to learn from them. I believe that, if you think you know everything, you're basically intellectually dead. If you understand that there's so much more to learn, life is more interesting. It is. And, it gives you hope that maybe things can change. If you know everything, nothing's going to change. It's why I came to China. I love China because they said, oh, I came here in 2000. I want to learn. I'm so glad you're here. We want to learn from you. And I said, well, I don't think you can learn much from me. But the attitude convinced me that if there was going to be a renaissance in my lifetime, it would be in China. And 21 years later, as of January 7th, I have not been disappointed. There's change. China has lots and lots of problems. But the difference is, I notice, is they eventually recognize this is a problem. Then they try to solve it. In the United States, I lived in a city that was, at the time, the most segregated city in the United States, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It's not a bad place to live, but it was extremely stratified. And it had been that way for long. Now it's only the third most, you know, stratified city in America. But my point was, I would sit with people in the morning who ran the Fortune 500 companies. We belonged to the same athletic club, and ex-governors, people who really had a tremendous amount of power. And I'd criticize them, and I say, hey, listen, you guys, everything, you have all the power, and nothing has changed. And that was 21 years ago. And unfortunately, I'd have to say that although there's been some incremental changes, very small in terms of the metrics, in terms of education, safety, the things where people live, cost of living, all of these things, social development, it just hasn't happened. And I can't say I had a bad experience. I ran my own district there, which is definitely still the most, when I took it over, it was not doing very well. Now it's one of the leading districts, not only in Milwaukee, but one in the United States. It has a public market we built. We built connected parks. We built river walks, parking structures, and it's pretty much self-contained and self-operating. And it was good. So I saw hope there. And I saw the opportunity to change. But 21 years later, all I see is that very little has actually changed, that the district continues to do well based on the impetus of all the people, because it wasn't just me. There were others involved, many involved. It was always a team project. But I haven't seen it spread. I was hoping that this would be, bellwether, and that this would, help the city, think of itself as something that could change, because this area was really not in good shape when I took it over. I mean, it was worth $16 million in total value. And then 10 years later, it was 720 million. Now I'm sure it's well over 1.5 billion. But that has not been mirrored in the rest of the city. Now, this area had specific advantages and things like that. But I do think that we have to, put away this idea of how we think about others, because it's a trap. Once if I'm a cynic, or I'm a criminal, or, I lock myself into a way of thinking where I think everyone else is the same. And then it's very, very difficult to create any real change. You have to kind of question that. And that's what I'm alluding to with America's elite. They have to see a crack in the wall and say, maybe there's something outside my core beliefs that I should be paying attention to. Perhaps I should have empathy for other people, not disdain. I can tell you absolutely, Carl, you have empathy. That's why I like you and I do your show. But there's so many people who don't have empathy. And you look at Donald Trump, there's those two images of him. One is a guy who he knows, who's up on stage. He's going off the stage. He cracks his head open. Donald Trump is rearing back. Everyone else is rushing to help the guy. He's like standing, he's afraid he's going to get blood on his things. And then most recently, he's speaking, and some guy behind him is, I don't know, having an aneurysm or a heart attack. And he's like looking at him as if he's, interrupting his, how dare you interrupt my speech? What are you doing? Just stop flopping around like that. You're distracting people from me. This should be about me. Anyway, he doesn't have empathy, real empathy. And I'll tell you, I've never met a good person who doesn't have empathy. And I've never met a bad person who does have empathy. So it's something to think about. Once you can get beyond your own assumptions and start looking at how other people live and try to understand their point of view, I think there is hope. All right. But if you're locked into this idea that I'm right, you're wrong, I don't know what I'm talking about, I don't know on a basis, but I just feel that I'm right. I might be ignorant, but that's common sense. I know I'm right. Once you get locked into that, then you're going to have the problems. And this is not just Trump supporters. You have the same thing on the far left. They're always convinced that they're absolutely right, and they're willing to do whatever it takes. If I have to kill you to save you, so be it. The old idea that a lot of religious people have had, during the Inquisition. Well, they're heathens, so if we burn them, God can sort them out, right? And it was all based on, I am absolutely right. I cannot be wrong. And that I think is the real enemy here.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Einar Tangen. I have learned a lot, and every time I really enjoy our conversation. Thank you again for making the time to talk to us, and I look forward to have you back.
Well, anytime you want, Carl. I always enjoy these. Although I feel afterwards, I feel like, oh God, you talk too much. I suppose that's why you asked me to come on.
No, this is why I want you to be on my show, so I can do less work. All I have to do is just sit back and listen. That's all I do. I just listen and record. Make my job easier.
I'd like to interview you one of these days and get your pitch on this, because you talk to so many different people, and you've developed your own perspective on so many things and issues. It would be really wonderful to reverse roles sometime. I'll interview you. How's that?
Feel free.
Okay.
Anytime we talk, you can feel free to reverse the table, reverse the role, and put me on the spot.
Next time, then I'll come up with some questions for you and things. And it's really about how you're thinking about all of these things, because you talked, as I said, you talk to so many people, and it's bound to have an effect. Clearly, I can understand your point of view from your questions and things like that, but I know there's a lot of more nuances in the way you're thinking and looking at stuff, and it would be really, really, really nice to hear your voice.
All right, it's a deal. Let's do it next time.
Okay. Right. Whenever you're ready, whenever you're recovered from this ordeal, we can think about the next one.
Yes, thank you.
All right,
thank
Carl.
you,
All the
Einar,
best.
and thank you everyone for tuning in. Until next time. Bye-bye.